Welcome to the Passive Income Podcast. I am your host, Dividend Dave. Please be sure to join the Passive Income Posse by clicking that subscribe button below. I'm super excited for this episode. Joining me is Jay at, I believe it's $1 Dividend, your Twitter handle.
Yeah, it's the number one. I used up every single character you could.
Nice. Yeah, if you just want to go ahead and give yourself a bit of an introduction, and then we'll get into it.
Cool. All right. First off, Dave, thanks for having me on the show. Appreciate you reaching out. And thanks to the whole entire Dividend Twit community. I just recently got into it about mid-January and nothing but open arms and just a lot better vibe than, let's say, Facebook. You know, you post something on Facebook and it's instant negativity, but in the Twitter community, everybody seems to pat you on the back and stuff, even if it's something small like 2 cents for a dividend. But a little bit about me. I'm pretty new to the whole entire investing journey. I started right when COVID happened, during the March-April time. We got a $1,200 stimulus check, so I figured, why not? I'll just throw it in the market. It's like gambling, right? I'll see what I can do with it. Well, I turned that into about $25,000.
Oh, wow.
Relatively quickly, within about a year and a half. Got to about 20, started learning about day trading. So I would just swing trade, day trade my 3 trades a week before I hit the pattern day trade rule. Then I'd swing trade the rest and just slowly built my shares up. Tesla helped me get there for the most part, about $15,000. I kept seeing $25, $35, $45 swings. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll put $2,000 on it, make, a couple $100, and then call it a day. And then ended up getting the account to about 25, got to the day trading pinnacle, I guess you could say. Right. AMC happened. I made $5,000 in a couple of minutes, and then greed kicked in, and I ended up blowing up the whole entire account. Got left holding a couple of bags that I still hold to this day, a little bit of AMC, a bunch of Riot, Bitcoin kind of mining companies and stuff. So that led me down the path to value investing and dividend investing. So I started an M1 account last year, put $25 a week into it, just to see what would happen with fractional shares too, because I'd never had that option up until that point. And game changer. Just fractional shares and the ability to dollar cost average, that just, okay. So now we're on to something. And then I'm getting paid just to hold it while everything's in the red today, still getting paid. Yep. Can't ask for a better way for passive income. So that's kind of like
there's no better scenario, right?
No, not at all. I mean, it's like I was saying, when we drive by somewhere, my wife and I'm like, I might be down on this stock, but I got paid, 18 cents on it last month, and I'll come in the room, and I started an account for her, and she does $10 a week, has no interest in it whatsoever, but just the little bit, it kind of goes off of my screen name, just, $1 a day, it counts. If you just throw it in there every day, she puts $10 a week, it's a little bit more than $1 a day, but I mean, she made 82 cents in her first month or something. And it's like 82 cents. That's more than having 10 grand in our bank account right now. It's like, and you have $200 worth of stock in Starbucks, like, way to go,
Yeah, exactly. But, awesome.
Yeah.
So first, you are relatively new to the DivTwit community, and so welcome. And I have noticed your tweets and you're growing your account relatively quickly. I did notice just before I came on, I was looking at your page, and you're just shy of 500 followers. So I'm sure we're going to get you there real soon. And your tweets are, really good, and you engage with the community, and that's, for me, that's a big part of it, right? Like quite often, just when somebody responds to one of my tweets and I notice, oh, they're following me, I'll follow them back just because of the engagement, right? So
yeah, I try to at least comment back if it's comment worthy, but as I do have a wife and a son and a job, so I'm starting to get to the point now where it's like, I know it's minuscule numbers, but 500, it's like, okay, I can't give
a big step. It's a big milestone, right? That first 500, that
can't
first
give
1,000,
500
those are big milestones.
Yeah, you can't just constantly give out paragraph tweets, every single time
No.
like I was in the beginning. But a little piece of advice. I mean, I asked right in the first couple of weeks because I've had Twitter 2-3 times, and it's always turned into some political fights and just
Twitter fight.
nonsense. Yeah, and I'm like, okay, I'm over this. But this is like a whole different community. And
Yes.
I was like, well, how do you get more followers? That's the huge question everybody wants to know. And somebody just said, just make sure you engage. I forget who it was. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
Anytime anybody says anything, I mean, even if it's just I'm tagged in it, I still like every single thing that they say to you. I'll like everything just so it gets more
More
algorithm
traction.
going. Yeah.
For
And it's
sure.
just definitely just like, and then what I've told a couple of people, and this might help you guys or anybody else out there, that little alternate text whenever you add a photo,
Yes.
that's for like the hearing impaired and stuff like that. And so if you add text to that, that gets you more traction too. So
Oh,
that,
interesting.
yeah, that's a little, I go down the rabbit hole of things and try to figure out ways of getting followers and stuff. So I just, oh, that's a way. Put alternate text. All right, it takes 2 seconds. I copy exactly what I posted in the post, put it in there, and it
And
seems
then
to get. I've tested it.
going back
So,
to what you were saying too about, sort of the open arms and people saying, you post you made a 2 or 5 cent dividend, and people are like, "Hey, that's awesome. That's awesome." Because you know
yeah,
what?
yeah,
Making a 5 cent or 10 cents or whatever it is in dividends, that's a whole heck of a lot more than zero, right?
yeah,
So,
yeah,
and
absolutely.
everybody in the DivTwit community understands you gotta start. You just gotta start. Everybody's heard me say it before. Just get
Yep,
on base. My Moneyball
yep,
reference. Get hit by a pitch and
yep.
take bases on balls. You're not gonna hit a grand slam, but just get on base, right?
That's what I
And
mean. That's what I tell anybody that's scared to get into investing. I do jujitsu as a hobby, and it's the same thing with that. It's like just try it. Just come in
yeah,
for a day. Just try it. Just try investing. Now with the fractional shares, that's one of the big things I wanted to talk about. The importance of fractional shares.
right.
To me, I mean, I'm trying to teach my stepson about it. I'm trying to teach my wife about it. Anybody never, oh, I don't have enough money. Well, do you have $1 a day? Like that's where that idea came from. I'm like, well, I got this website. It's called M1. Like put $1 in there. When it hits $25, it automatically invests. Set everything to a certain percentage. Like I have my own little ETF that I'm building, just testing something out. It's kind of like my test portfolio. And when Intel hit, everybody's freaking out. I just dropped that thing down to 1%. I only had $10 invested into it because I've got about 30, 35 different holdings in there that I'm trying to trim down. But I didn't freak out. I was okay, let's just move it down to 1%. I'm just not going to invest in them, but I don't want to lose them completely. And
Right.
the idea of being a dividend investor when you read it is hold for the long term. Well, I see a lot of people selling when everything happens. And then you make fun of like the panic sellers for AMC and all. It's like people are freaking out about MPW. I still have MPW. It it happens, and you just have to be willing to roll with the punches. Why did you buy that company in the first place? If you didn't have the mindset in the beginning, you're not going to have it 10 years from now. So it's just,
Yeah, exactly.
and that's why I think fractional shares to me is just, okay, well, let's just not invest in it for a while. Keep it at 1%, move everything else up. What else is doing better?
Sure.
And it seems to work for me. I mean, that's my little play account. I have my retirement account, but 10, $15 a week into it and just watch things and how things are moving and having a little. I've heard you say you can't catch them all, but it's like I'm gonna prove Dave wrong. Like I'm gonna catch them all, and I'm gonna show him like it's just about, to me it's about that number. You're looking for that dividend yield number. You're looking for that positive green number at the end of the year, and
Right.
it doesn't matter how many shares you have in there. As long as that number is positive at the end of the year, you're good to go in my book.
Yes, when I say you can't catch them all, I'm talking like you simply can't buy every single company on, like, for me in Canada, the TSX, or
Right.
in New York, the New York Stock Exchange, or in London, you've got the FTSE,
Yeah.
and Germany and Japan and all these, exchanges all over the world, and you simply can't buy every single company. Even with the greatest ETFs, you have exposure to literally hundreds, if not thousands, of incredible
Hmm.
companies,
Hmm.
but you're still not gonna have them all.
Right. Yeah. No doubt. Yeah. Hey, before we forget, I do want to compliment you on your new merchandise, sir.
Yes, Patrick, shout out to Patrick at Investing Shirt, sent me a ball cap and you know what we call this in Canada? What would you call that?
I call it a beanie, but I've heard toboggan, and then I've heard you say a toque, right? Is that
Toque
correct?
is what we would
Yeah,
call that. Yeah.
that's what I'm gonna start calling it, man. I like taking lingo from different parts of the world. Like when I talk to people from Europe, like when they say legend and proper, like I freak out. I'm like, "Oh, you're a proper legend," and I just freak
Yeah.
out when I'm like, "Yeah," like I just
Nice.
get amped up for different lingo. So I'm gonna take that from you guys and start using that here. But
Cool. Cool. Yeah.
yeah,
Everyone in
he actually
Canada
made
would.
this shirt for me as well. I mean,
Right.
I
Yeah.
told
Shout out to
him,
Patrick for that one as well. Bullish
yeah, the
on.
bullish on dividends.
Nice.
So I just mentioned to him on Twitter. I said, "Hey, you should have a bullish on dividends shirt." And
And then it
I'm
shows up
not
in the
even
mail
lying.
like 2 or 3 days
50,
later, right? It's
yeah,
like,
52 minutes later, he's like, "Here you go. I got it for you." And I'm like, "Holy crap. Okay, buy now." And then within 3 or 4 days, it's at my door, like
nice.
can't beat that.
Nice.
So,
Link in the description below. Buy investing shirts. Use code word Posse to get 5% off your purchase. And of course, you've seen me wear this one as well, the Passive Income Posse t shirt. Patrick has tons of other great merch over there as well. So check out his website. And yeah, definitely, definitely buy some stuff from Patrick.
yeah, he's a good dude.
Nice, nice. That sort of sorry, this sort of made me lose my train of thought. Where were
No,
we?
you're fine. So just I guess since I've watched so many of your shows, I'll just take it from here and let you
Yeah,
sit back
please
and
do.
relax.
I think you're the
We're gonna
number
talk
one.
about REITs.
You're
So
like the first officer of the passive income posse
there,
at this
hey, I'll
point.
take it, man. Yeah, I wanted to get prepped up. I haven't been on a podcast in a long time since I had one about 3 or 4 years ago, and so wanted to get the nerves out of the way and figure out how you run the show. So I just binge watched 40 episodes. So I was like, all right, I just started from the newest one and moved my way down. So, but
Wow.
it's cool to see, like, and I appreciate you doing it because it's cool to see there's so many people you get to put the face to, the name to the face. And
Yep.
unfortunately, I listen at work all the time, so I still don't know what anybody looks like. I'm just listening, but it's cool to. I can see us doing this again, 2-3 years down the road, and be like, "Where are you now? Where are you now?" And just
Yes.
watching this progress, and it'd be cool to see this whole thing documented from this little thing called DivTwit.
That's
You
definitely
know,
one of the goals of the passive income podcast is to have people come back on a year later, 2 years later,
yeah,
and re-examine their journey and say, okay, hey, we haven't talked in a year or a year and a half or whatever it may
hmm
be, and be like, hey, how are you doing now? And as you know from watching so many episodes, there's so many incredible people with so many different journeys, so many different
yeah,
paths, so many different stories. And some people, just starting out. I've had some very young guests, like the very
yeah.
first guest. I don't know if you've made it all the way back to the very first episode. His name was JR in New Jersey. At the time, he was 19 years old. I couldn't
Wow.
believe how knowledgeable he was for a 19-year-old kid. It was just like blew my mind, right? And then
Right.
obviously I've had right up to, people that are, making living off of their dividends have become that fire community financial independence, retire early, and more or less everything in between, right?
Yeah.
Everybody and all these incredible people, incredible stories, paths, journeys. I've just been, loving all of these conversations I've been having with everybody, and it's just and I've learned so much from everybody, and I'm hoping that the viewers and listeners have learned as well from, if you can take a little bit from each and every one of these episodes, that's exactly what I'm trying to do here, right? So,
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. It's like you can call it the charcuterie board of podcasting. You just let everybody tell their story. One person might have because one of the common questions, how many stocks should I have in my portfolio? There's no right answer. There's
right.
no right answer. Should I sell the stock or not? It's like you're never gonna, that whole saying, well, you're not losing until you sell. And it's like, well, you're not winning until you sell too. So at some point you
Well,
have to
except
make
with
that.
dividends, you're winning every
That's
month or every
Yeah,
quarter. Like
exactly.
they
Exactly. That's
like
the loophole. So I mean, it's like, and that's the thing too. It's like it's just, what do you feel right is for you at that time? And it's like, and one thing that I've learned, I've come from filing bankruptcy to buying my own house last year, and
oh wow.
waiting, waiting until just recently I got a security clearance for my job, which they don't let happen if you have bankruptcy. So I waited 10 years for this thing to fall off. I have a phenomenal credit score. I've got a house. I've got a savings account. Like, it can be done. It's just making micro goals and micro steps. That's what I like to do. Everybody wants to have this long-term plan to retire early, the
Yeah.
statement, like, but what are you going to do in the process of getting there? It's not just putting in $50 a week. It's like, if things aren't moving and things aren't going according to plan, and you're not constantly taking a look at that plan every 3 months, you could be way behind 10 years from now,
Yes.
versus being 10 steps ahead. It's like I think it was Rusty that put out the MPW article. It's like, if everybody would have just listened to him, nobody would have lost any money, but nobody was doing their due diligence. They wanted to take their chance, and now people are mad because some bad news happened, and it's like, I mean, the company's, it's 110, it's not going to pay, but everything will circle back around, It's
Right.
like, you just got to have faith in it, but I'm a big REIT guy since I've gotten the community. I know you are.
Yes, I am.
And so, yeah, it's like, I've actually learned more about REITs in the last couple of months just from everybody in there. And I'm like, why are they talking about this one? Why are they talking? And I'm like, buy this one, buy that one, put that one on the watch list, and it's like, oh, okay, this is how you can make money. And I think now is the perfect time to get into REITs, with how the economy is and everything like that. It's like, that to me is a 10-year play. Like,
For
there's
sure.
plays you can get in now and make a few dollars here or there. You can get into Tesla and sell it for $50 tomorrow. Cool. But that is, to me, one of those 10-year plays. You get into Altria, like the sin stocks. It's like, all that, once cannabis gets legalized,
It
clear
is.
federally, like, yeah, I mean, for you guys, but down here, like, or just across the world, just that whole demeanor goes away. That's where they're
Right.
going to shift their money to. It's not, that company's not going to go away because nobody smokes cigarettes. They're going to shift their business. That
Yep.
to me that's a 10-year play. It's like Google 10-year play. Like, you just have to have certain things lined up, but every year take a look at it, see how things are going. And I don't think people do that enough. I think they're afraid to sell stocks sometimes, but sometimes you need to, if it's not working, move things into a different sector.
Yep.
Because that's how things, like, if you look at my play account on M1, I've got a little bit of CAT, I've got, a little bit of UPS, just things like that. Like, I don't want to miss it, but I don't want to put a ton into it, but 10 years down the road, if all of a sudden we're moving in, I don't think oil's ever going to go away, but if we really start ramping up into clean energy, I want to have a couple companies now, but not I don't want to put my
All your
whole
eggs
entire
into that
house.
whole
Yeah.
one renewable energies basket because
Right.
I'm with you. Oil and gas is not going away anytime soon.
Ever. No.
I do like, though, CAT and UPS, like, great companies. Caterpillar has amazing machinery, and you drive by any construction site, there's going to be Caterpillar equipment, excavators,
Mm-hmm.
and rock trucks, bulldozers, whatever.
Yeah.
Caterpillar is, a pillar in that industry. And UPS and FedEx too. Like, literally where I work, there is a UPS and a FedEx truck there every single day, whether they're
Yeah.
picking up or delivering.
Yep.
Every single day, FedEx and UPS come and going, come and going,
Yep.
come and going all the time, right? And that's just one example of one company in a little tiny town in a little tiny
Yeah.
city in Canada, and
Yep.
obviously they're all over the world picking up and dropping off all day, every day, everywhere,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, we've got FedEx and a UPS right down the road. Both are big hubs, and we've got call centers throughout our area. And I know a few people that work for them, and they said like 80% of the workload is all Amazon stuff. So it's like getting a little piece of Amazon at the same time. It's
right.
like I'm in a REIT called Stag, and that's more of like your warehousing
Yep.
for Amazon
Yeah,
and stuff like that. It's like,
other American guests have talked about Stag for sure.
yep. And that's one thing I think people need to look at. Like, I am holding the bag on Riot, but to me, that was um, my crypto play. I didn't want to, I felt like $62,000 was too much money for a Bitcoin, but, $25 a share for somebody that's mining Bitcoin sounds like a good, way to get into that play. Just like I think Stag is a good way. Like anybody that's connected with Amazon, that's a good company to invest in. Not necessarily every company, but if they've got some kind of contract with them, they're big players at that point,
For
and it's like
sure.
that's something to look into. And I think everybody instantly wants to go for the big name Amazon, and then they don't think about all the other 15 million plays that one Amazon has control over.
Yeah, we don't talk about cryptocurrency very often here on the Passive Income Podcast, but
I
I am a
hate
true
it.
believer that
I
Bitcoin
think it's going to be. I think it'll be
will go
great, but
back
I
up.
hate it.
Yeah,
Yeah. Um,
it's to me, it's all about the Bitcoin halving. When Bitcoin halves again, and for those that don't know what Bitcoin halving is, we'll move on to another topic. But
right.
for me, I believe when the Bitcoin halving event happens, it's going to increase in price. Well,
Yeah.
like anything, supply goes down, demand remains the same, or demand
Yeah.
increases, the price has to go up, right? It's literally supply and demand.
And I think right now with just the way the world is working, like people aren't worried about Bitcoin and in stocks and stuff like that. This is when people are going to become millionaires because the ones that are investing. But it's like people right now are paying $8 for eggs, and it's like they don't care about Bitcoin and stuff right now. But it's like
Right.
once everything levels out, hey, where's that Bitcoin at? Wasn't it at $70,000? It's only at 15 grand. I'm going to buy some, and then all of a sudden, that's when that to the moon
Right.
happens. But
Circling back around to REITs, we definitely I have to ask you about Realty Income, ticker symbol O.
Yes, yes, sir. I am a investor. That's so when I got into dividend investing, that was one of the 8 companies I started with. I had no idea what a REIT was. It just said they pay you a monthly dividend. That was their little slogan. And I was like, all right, it's around $50. I'll buy it. I had no idea. I just bought it just to buy it. And then as I started learning, I was like, well, they do pay every single month. I'm getting like a quarter every month. All right, and so I've got about 10 or 15 shares, nothing too
Yeah.
extravagant. I haven't been putting into it as much. I've seen the potential elsewhere. I think that one's kind of, they have a great marketing slogan. When you think of, what pays dividends or how could I make a dividend every single month, that name is going to come up. So I think that's why a lot of people invest. It's not saying that they're a bad company, but I think as I'm learning more about REITs, there's a ton more like the one in Vegas, the Vici, or however you
Yes.
want to. I've heard so many people say it different
I
ways,
was
but
going
it's
to
like,
ask you about that one next.
yeah, that's one. And it's like, I just recently got into that one. I think that is where I'm going to push a little bit further than O. But I have that one. I do still have a little bit of MPW, and then I've got Cube that I'm working on. So I think, public storage again. I think you just have to see how things are going. If people start losing their houses, people are going to pay for storage,
Right.
and that's always the thing here in America. It seems like we're hoarders. So we just hoard everything. Like my dad has been paying for a storage unit for, God, I'm 35. So probably 25 years. And I'm like, Dad, none of that stuff in there is worth $150 a month. He's like, I don't care. It's sentimental. And I'm like, all right, man. I'm like, that to each
It's
their
not
own.
going
I'm
to
like,
win any episodes of Storage Wars.
no, not at all. Not at all. That crappy guitar that you had in high school that you were picking up chicks with isn't gonna sell in 2023. I'm sorry. But
That's crazy. Yeah, so obviously I've learned a lot about Realty Income and Vici from all of the other American guests I've had here on the podcast. And yeah, like, Realty Income paying that monthly dividend and increasing their dividend, I believe every quarter, if I'm not mistaken.
yeah,
So, right there, having him, that dividend growth, that's a major selling point to most of us here in the div twit and the dividend community, where it's like,
for
well,
sure.
we don't just want dividends, we want those dividends to grow. Right?
Right.
We want not only do we want you to pay us to not work for you, we want to get raises when we don't
Yeah.
work for you.
How
And then yeah,
demanding.
that VG one sounds amazing too, because from what I understand, it owns the majority of the Las Vegas Strip, right? Like
Yeah.
Bellagio,
Yeah.
MGM Grand,
Yeah.
maybe
That's
Caesar's
one thing
Palace and Luxor, and
yeah,
I don't
I
know what
think that's
else
how
is in there.
it took over. From what I believe, I could be wrong, but I think it took over once Caesars went bankrupt. It kind of took over identity there, and then just started buying up everything. Because
Right.
when COVID happened, that was one of the things I bought into MGM. So I'm like, eventually we're gonna go back to going to hotels and doing all this stuff. It took a little longer than I thought, but it was like I
Yep.
was always thinking 10 steps ahead. The only thing I think hasn't made a comeback is the airlines.
Right.
I mean, I look at the airlines and I'm like, I bought it cheaper than that, or a little bit more expensive than that, 2 years ago during COVID. Like, that hasn't made a bounce back. The cruise lines haven't, but you look at your railways and stuff like that. That's something I'm kind of getting interested in looking at. I've heard you talk about the train behind your house.
Right there.
So
Right
yeah,
outside
so
that
I'm
window.
always like, every time I hear it, I'm like, you know what? I'm like, I got to start looking into these trains, and it's, Warren Buffett's into them and stuff like that. That's another thing that's never going to go away either. So I, I think as I'm learning, I'm slowly building that portfolio, the dividend portfolio of my portfolio, to just stuff that's staples, that's never
Yeah.
going to go away, and it's like, done taking the risks. I have a play account. I can use that for risks. I'm trying to make $1 million off of AMC or something like that. But the real money's in the long-term play and finding
For
stuff that's
sure.
quality that isn't going to go away. I have Coke in my portfolio, but I just recently got a little bit of Pepsi because my taste buds prefer Coke. But I mean, Pepsi to me is more of a food company than a soda company, and
Right.
they've got just a billion different things under their umbrella. It's like I can't not invest in them. It's like, but Nike's another one. I'll never wear a pair, but I'll invest in them. So, but you just have to
So
make those
interesting.
sacrifices.
Interesting. The town just over 30 minutes that way, 25 minutes that way, there is a PepsiCo facility where they make the Quaker. I believe they make the Quaker muffin mix at that facility,
Yeah,
but
Quaker Oats and stuff.
yeah, so and obviously they have the Frito Lay. So I get what you're saying. Pepsi being well, I think I would call them a food and beverage company because obviously
Yeah,
the beverage side is still quite large in Pepsi, but yeah, and whereas Coke is literally more just a beverage company.
yeah,
Of course, they have expanded. They're into not just the soft drinks, but also water and energy
yep,
drinks. And I'm sure Pepsi probably has their water and energy drinks as
yep.
well. So
And Coke
you
just
know,
came out with the Jack and Coke in a can. So I
right?
know they just expanded into the alcohol too. So I think that's a smart play for them.
Yeah, for sure. Because that's marketing, right? Like how
Yeah,
often people go to a bar and they just order a Jack and Coke. Like
yeah.
even if the bar is like serving up RC Cola, what they say is
It's a
what
Jack and
the
Coke. It's
customer
always,
asks
yeah,
for is Jack and Coke. So
yeah.
I,
It's
I
about
agree
the
with you.
name. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's not a Kleenex.
branded.
It's a tissue. Yeah, Band-Aid. It's not it's what people call it. And it's just
Yeah,
like there's a lot of things I learned uh, as I've started doing investing and try to, like, if I see something that's interesting, like I'm like, is that a publicly traded company? I need to look, babe, look it up. I'll
yeah.
ask my wife, look it up. Like, well, I'm driving, I'll be like, look it up, look it up. Like, it's a constant thing. Like, I need that on a shirt, is look it up, because it's forever. I'm like, just find out and tell me how much the shares are. What is the dividend yield? They don't have a dividend. Next, moving on,
Yeah.
and it's just, we make
Should be
jokes all
one
the
that,
time.
hey Patrick, if you're listening, do your own research. Just DYOR, right? Do your own
Yeah.
research.
Yeah, it's so funny. My wife, I was talking to her about how I'd make fun of all the YouTubers being like, this isn't financial advice. And I caught myself having to do it. And I'm like, oh man, I'm that guy now. Like, because I'm
Yeah, by
finally
the
got
way,
enough
this is not
people.
financial advice.
Of course. I think at this point, though, I mean, you should know. And I mean, and that's the thing. Are you really going to listen to the two guys that are saying this isn't financial advice? If I say anything that's interesting, you're instantly going to be like, that sounds great. Like,
Yeah.
that's another important thing for fractional shares. Buy $1. Listen to some guy on YouTube, spend $1 on it, see how it plays out. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
Worst you
Everyone
can
can
do is
afford
lose
a
about,
dollar.
yeah, $1 a day. See,
Dollar a
circle
day.
back around.
Oh, nice. Please help support the Passive Income Podcast by buying me a coffee. Link in the description below, or use the QR code on your screen. I do want to get into talking about other industries or sectors. Obviously, we've talked about REITs. We've touched on the consumer discretionary being the Coke and Pepsis. Um, obviously there's tons of other sectors that we haven't even talked about, and because, like, again, you've watched so many of the episodes of the podcast, sort of the structure of some of the sectors that we talk about: energy,
Hmm.
financials, telecoms, more of the, like, not necessarily consumer discretionary, but more consumer staples,
Hmm.
healthcare, technology, sort of any of those sectors you want to dive into more.
Sure. So for for me, consumers, I just lump them two together because who's
I
to
tend to
say,
as well.
yeah, I mean, I'm not going to sit there and nitpick certain things. Target to me is a consumer staple, just like Starbucks is a consumer staple. I mean, there's people that can't go every day without a Red Bull. That's a consumer staple. But so I have Target in mind. To me, I am anti Walmart. That's one of the companies I won't invest in. I don't like the company in general, so I try not to shop there, and I do my best to not invest there as well. So I think Target is going to be, it'll never be a Walmart, but I think it'll be that solid number two. So to me, that's a super long term play for me. Um, we are Kroger loyal in this house. That's where we shop just in general. And I've been waiting for a specific price target, 43 area, 44 area, and it finally hit. I've been waiting probably about 6 months for that because I still have that mindset of being a swing trader where I'm not necessarily going to just buy because people are talking about it. I have to find the level. And if I
Right.
see certain levels like Target, I've put it out there to ask a few people, like, if you were down on something for 6 months, would you sell it if you broke even? If you had a feeling it was going to go back down? And it was about a 50-50 poll. And two times now I've caught myself trying to be like that dividend, I'm going to hold forever. And I watched it go well past, could have sold it for profit, and it dropped $5 lower. I mean, it's at 160 now, 160, and it's like $20 less than what it was at 2 weeks ago. And it's like, man, I should have sold it,
Yeah, but
because
zoom out, because, in 5, 10 years, it's gonna go back,
yeah,
like,
you're right. You're right.
and
And
if
I
you're
mean, it's
if
what,
you're getting a dividend, I don't know if Target pays a dividend or not.
yes, yes. It's
So yeah, if you're getting a dividend over those 5, 10 years, you're still, winning in the long run, right?
yeah, yeah, and that's again, I mean, that's the power of the dividends. I mean, just I look at my account and maybe two or three things are green right now, and but I'm still making money on 90%
Yes.
of them, and it's one of those. But you'll be happy to hear. I guess so. I haven't been able to check today on Twitter, but I saw that the banks, something happened with the banks. Everybody was freaking out,
Oh, I didn't
and
see that either. So you're
yeah,
catching
and
me
I
off
looked at
guard.
my M1 account. And I was getting a screenshot of all the companies I have just so we could have something to talk about. And I noticed my Bank of America and JP Morgan were down, 6 feet underground. I was like, what's going on over here? My $5 that I put into it. But um, so I ended up going to um, my Roth account, my retirement account, and I noticed I had a buy today, and I got my first Canadian stop.
Oh,
So I
wow.
got, yeah, it happened to be on the day that we are doing the show. So
Nice.
I put a buy for BNS, Bank of Nova
Oh.
Scotia, for 49.25. I thought was a good number. Being a little awesome day trader that I am. Uh, I was apparently wrong and dipped another dollar or so in there, but I've been looking at that one for a little while. That one in TD,
Yep.
even before the podcast. But as I started listening to your Canadian guests, I think that's what's cool about our community too, is that we know people from different areas. So I'd be like, hey man, what's playing on over like what's
Yeah.
going on over in that sector? And it's like, I have firsthand ability to talk to somebody that's in Canada right now or in Europe, and it's like,
Yeah.
I think that's the power that I don't think people are taking into consideration now. You have the internet, YouTube, fractional shares. I mean, no commissions. I mean, that's one thing when I grew up, it was like, it's a rich man's game. It
Yes.
costs $50 to buy and sell. And I'm like, $50? Well, how much
Yeah.
is the stock? It's $100 a share. And I'm like, and you want me to buy 100 of those? And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it just blew my, I was like, I'll never do that. That's the stupidest thing in the world.
It's
And you
definitely
watch
opened
it.
up, like, in Canada, we have an app called Wealthsimple, and I believe it's very similar to Robinhood in the US, where,
Yeah.
the zero commission, and yeah, it's literally like a couple clicks on your phone, and you've just bought a share or 10 shares or whatever for
Yeah.
zero commission. And believe me, I'm old enough to remember those days too when it was like you know, I remember I remember being ecstatic when it dropped from 29.95 when online banking first came in, when it dropped from 29.95 per trade down to 9.95 per trade. And
Yeah,
now I look at that 9.95 going, why would I ever do
that
that again? Right?
yeah, that's great. Like that's one so I'm doing a rollover into from my old job into an IRA, and I decided to go with Fidelity. I started with Fidelity, went over to TD because of Thinkorswim, and then they're kind of far behind. Like it's almost like they're dinosaurs because they don't do fractional shares yet.
Right.
And it's like I'm using M1. It's like not saying that I don't want to invest a whole share, but sometimes I don't, and I like the power to be able to not.
Well, and sometimes you
And
just can't afford it. Like,
yeah,
this train that goes
things down 15%. It's like, yeah, I want a piece of that action, but it's like I don't have $200
yeah,
to
that train
throw
that
on
runs
it.
by, I
Like,
want to say it's around $150 a share, Canadian dollars. So
yeah,
whatever that translates to, but still, I don't necessarily always have $150 just to spend on one share of one company. So I agree with you. Fractional shares are a great way to go, and you can, circling back to a dollar a day, $10 a week or whatever, $7 a
yep,
week, and over the course of, say 10 weeks, you've almost got that full share, right?
yep. I think what I'm planning on doing with my M1 account is uh getting rid of the stuff that I have right now and then kind of starting fresh and doing, say, I go to Target and just round everything up. Because when I was a member of Bank of America, when I first started an account when I was like 15, they had a thing called round up or round the change or something like that. You bought something for 2.95, they'd round up to $3. They put
Yeah.
5 cents into a savings account. I was thinking about doing the same thing with M1 and just, I go to Target, just round up to the next dollar and just putting it into each one of those stocks and just see where I spend my money in a year and just kind of show people like, hey, if you just took 50 cents and put it in there, this is what could happen, because I like to show my wife's portfolio because it's so small.
And
And
every
I
little
think
bit helps, right? I think that's
it,
great. Show that
yeah,
small portfolio because people can relate to those small numbers. You don't
yeah,
have
they've,
to you don't have to have $100,000 or
huh,
$1,000 or whatever. You can have 10, 15,
yeah.
$25 and
I
get
mean, and
started,
that's what's
right?
cool is, I mean, and that's, you're still getting a piece of that dividend too. Like that's what blew my mind. I mean, I think it was $1,025 was $25 a week, and I made $23 in dividends off of 8 stocks. And it's like, what? For doing nothing,
Yeah.
And it's just like I forgot about it midway through because I had left my job to go join the fire department, and I'm busy doing EMT courses and stuff like that. And it's like my nose in a book for 6 months. I didn't even think about the account, but there's this $25 automatically getting
Just
invested
shows up
every,
there. Yeah.
and just it did
That
its
is
own
my
thing.
most favorite thing in the world is when you wake up in the morning and on your phone there's a notification.
Yep.
It's like, "Oh, I got a dividend." I love
Yeah.
it. Great.
Yeah. Yep.
And so many times I'm like, usually you kind of, for me, especially because I obviously am right into the community and into the whole, I want to know where when my dividends are coming in and I like to see them roll in. But so many times too, I wake up in the morning and it's like, oh yeah, that one came in today. Great. Love it.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I've spent a whole entire weekend learning how to make a spreadsheet on Google Sheets. And I
Yeah.
mean, I watched hours of videos just to figure out how I could get it to take this number and add it to this number and it just show up here. Like I
Yeah.
was, took me all weekend, but I got it. And I'm so excited every single time I get a dividend because I'm like, 16 cents. Boom. Yes, sir. Like, I'm like, that's me right there.
Yeah.
I'll wake my wife up and be like, guess how much money you made today? And she's like, what? 2 cents on Apple. Way to go. And she's like, all right, babe. Like,
Two
minimal
cents for
effort. Back.
not
Yeah,
working for them.
exactly. Like, and that's the thing. I think after a year of showing her what it can do, I think she'll start bumping it up a little bit, but I put no pressure on her because she wants nothing to do with it. It
Yeah.
doesn't. I spend hours talking to you guys and just researching, just looking at my screen, just staring at charts, and she wants nothing to do with that. But I think something like fractional shares, where just 20, you just put in money and it automatically does it for you. Like we're in this golden age of the ability to make money. Like pick a
Yes.
company like Apple or follow the S&P 500 and just put in as much as you want. And set it and forget it, and come back 20 years from now and figure out what happens. Like, you'll be surprised. Like, I wish people taught children this more, like, don't
Oh,
buy
that's
the,
always been a big thing, it's just not taught in schools, right? And
I
it's
don't understand that. Like, I don't like that baffles me like that. It's like I'm planning on talking to a youth group. One of my buddies is a youth pastor, and I want to just ask that simple question, like, would you rather have $1 million right now or a penny doubled every day for a month? And it's like
because a
99% of
penny
people are like,
doubled every day for a month adds up to a whole lot more than $1 million.
yeah. And it's like, and people are like, there's no way. And it's like, you do the math and you just show them the chart, and it's like, holy cow. It's like, that's what compounding is. And that's how the whole spiel is going to start. Like,
Yeah.
most people don't know that if you're a kid and like I was working the day I turned 16, I had put in my application. I was working 2 days later. Like, that
Nice.
was my dad's birthday present. Like, oh, you're old enough to get a job, go into the real world.
Yeah.
And I got a job at Domino's, and I worked there every single day, and I wish I would have known about investing. I wish I would have known that I could have opened up a retirement account at 16 years old. Like, you could do that as long as you have income. For those that are in America, it's if you're 16 years old and you have income from Domino's, you can put as much as you can put up to $6,500 a year into there, like, as long as you've made $6,500. And
Right.
it's, I mean, my dad wouldn't let me drive, didn't trust me driving, so I bought DVDs. I had the best DVD collection. I had like 300 DVDs. That's what I'd do. I'd spend all my money, and it's like, just blow it because I didn't have anything else to spend money on. It's like, if somebody would have told me I had to put all that money into that account for 2 years and not bought DVDs for 2 years, I wouldn't probably be having to work, 17, 18 years down the road. It's like
Yeah.
hundreds of dollars a week I would have put into that thing, and living at home for free, eating for free. Like,
That's
that's,
definitely hindsight is 2020, right?
yeah, that's what I'm trying to teach my stepson. I told him, I was like, the moment you get a job, I'm like, it's not a requirement, but I'm just going to ask you kindly to give me half of your paycheck, and I will in return it, in a couple years, and teach you the
And
value
show you
of,
what I've done with it and be like, here,
yeah,
look at you're getting all, hopefully there's price appreciation on the majority of whatever you invest in.
yep,
Plus, hey, you're also getting paid dividends every month or every quarter to
yep,
not work for these companies, right?
yep,
Like,
yeah. I
to
mean,
me,
he
that's
takes
the
a little
greatest
bit of,
life hack is when a company
yeah.
pays me to not work for them.
Yeah, I mean, it's like he asks, like, he'll come in and he'll see me on Thinkorswim, and he'll be like, "How's Roblox doing?" Like, he knows there's certain companies out there, and I'll ask him too. I'm like, "What's the cool thing that's going on?" And that's the secret too, is you got to have a mix of who you hang out with and who you talk to and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Your circle, you're the average of the 5 people you hang around most. That's that saying. And it's like, if I'm the average of a bunch of millionaires, like, all
I'm
right,
okay with
I'll take
that.
it. Yeah, I'll be average then, but yeah, so definitely excited to be in the Canadian sector.
Yes,
And as I've
BNS.
listened more,
I,
that's who you have your, I'm trying to think. I've listened to so many of the podcasts. Who do you have your mortgage with them or something?
that's right. Yeah. So the set
See,
here of the Passive Income Podcast is sponsored by Bank of
funded.
Nova Scotia.
There you go.
And so
They're
that's
on a
why I
fire sale
have
right now.
and that's why I invest with BNS as well, is because,
Okay, cool.
I'm sure you've heard me say turn that cash register around. So I'm
Yep,
trying to, I'm a long way away from having enough shares that they cover my mortgage, but as long as I keep chipping away at it, buy a couple shares, couple shares, and you know what,
yep,
eventually, and obviously too, as I'm paying that mortgage down, eventually I'm going to be not having a mortgage and having them pay me.
yep.
So it
It's funny. It's funny you say that, because that's actually what got me into dividends. Like, I'm a firm believer that Verizon will be in the like that whole sector. We're nonstop without our phones now. So I think
Yep.
that the company might be in a slump now. Same thing with AT&T, T-Mobile, all that stuff. Like, maybe the whole everything is in a slump, basically. But do you think of companies like that, like, they're going to be around 10, 15, 20 years from now?
For sure.
So when I first got into dividends, that was another one of the 8 that I picked, and they had such a high yield. And I was like, oh, I like that, chasing yield in the beginning, not realizing,
Everybody
but at
does in
this,
the beginning. I
yeah.
don't think I
And then
don't
you
think
start
anyone
realizing
does.
yeah, I think everybody realizes that 3 to 4 is that sweet spot. Anything a little over that, it's a little risky. Anything under that, is more of a growth play, and but with Verizon, I was like, I'm going to have them pay for my cell phone bill,
Yep.
because I get internet and my wife has the cell phone through them. We have the internet through them, and I have Sprint. So now it's T-Mobile for now. I guess they had merged recently,
Okay.
but I'm like, if I get enough shares, and I've done the math, and it takes years, and I hate looking at the number. I'm like, God, 25 years, but I'm like, in 25 years, everything that I've made is all 100% profit because the dividends have paid for the stock. I love looking at numbers like that. And then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
after that, now you're paying me to use your service. Like, what? Like, that trips me out. I'm like, there's people like, if you have enough money, because I like to do just random, pretend I have $1 million or five, and it's like, oh man, I could literally have my cell phone paid for, my electric paid for by this company. But then I'm like, holy cow, like I'm onto something here. And that's honestly what led me into dividends, was just
Yeah.
looking at things like that. Like, oh, you're going to pay, like you said, turn the cash register around. You're going to pay me to use your product. Like, okay, I'm all for
Yeah, I'm the
that.
same. So in Canada, my cell phone is with, it's called Bell Canada. Obviously we have a
Okay.
few other cell phone suppliers as well. But yeah, so I invest in Bell Canada. Again, the idea to turn the cash register around. I'm a long way
Yep.
away from them paying my cell phone bill, but as I keep buying shares, same here
Whatever.
in Ontario, the electric provider is called Hydro One, so I buy shares in Hydro One with that same idea, turn the cash register around.
Yep.
So, hopefully, 5, 10 years down the road, I have enough shares that, yeah, like you said, those companies are paying me to use their service, right?
Yep. Yep. It would be a great shirt for you. You know how they do that thing now when you go anywhere and they flip the iPad to you
Yeah.
when they ask for the tip? Like, that's the new joke. Everybody like, well, you got a free water. We just need your signature. That would be a great shirt if they had like the iPad and the hand around it, like turn the cash register around, because that's literally what they do to you. They want a 15% tip for giving you a free water. It's like, yeah, I guess here you go. I feel so
Yeah.
guilty because
But 15% on free is how does that
yeah,
work?
right. Yeah.
I do
I
know
always,
Patrick has been working on a turn the cash register around design, and it's been challenging to say the least.
yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, telecoms is another one of my sort of favorite topics here on the Passive Income Podcast. Circling back, I know this is going back to several minutes ago when you were talking about, sort of investing during COVID and investing in the airlines and still not really seeing much return. What I did in that time is I invested in some restaurants and restaurant chains.
Hmm.
And at the time I thought I was crazy because it's like nobody was going to restaurants, right?
Right.
So I was like, either I'm crazy or I'm brilliant.
Oh yeah.
And I think the jury is still out on me being brilliant for sure.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, so a couple of those have, price appreciation has done great. Uh, the two I have are monthly dividend payers, and I'm not disappointed about the amount that I get paid every month from them. And honestly, I'd like to invest more into both of those uh, companies, but I really have a hard time dollar cost averaging up because I look through my portfolio and I go, oh, I can dollar cost average down on this, or I can dollar cost average down
yeah.
on that. And so I end up, kind of every paycheck when I put my 100, 200, $300 in, whatever, I'm like, oh, but I can dollar cost average down on this, down on this one, down on this one. And
Yeah.
so
When
even though
everything's
I'd
on
like to buy
sale.
more of those ones, I'm like kind of a little bit stuck.
Yeah. It sucks when everything's on sale. Like, but it's like, I mean, again, that's one of the big things with the fractional shares. I mean, we have days like bloody weeks, like last week, I think it was, or the week before, it was like, okay, I'm not buying anything in my Roth because it doesn't matter what I buy, it's going to go down like 10% by next week or, something. So I just started buying a bunch of stuff in the M1 account, and it's like, okay, like these are all to me flash sales. I'm like, I'm going to take them, but
Right.
it's it's funny because when COVID happened, it was like shooting fish in a barrel. I thought the stock market was easy. I'm like, oh, this is how you make money. Like, you just
Yeah.
buy low, sell high. Like, how hard is this? Like, and it's free commissions. I didn't know any of like the dark days. And I had this older gentleman at my job teach me about options. And first time I ever lost, I think it was like $5,000. Like, it was a hard pill to swallow. And he came to me and he was like, I was waiting for this moment, like this proud father like moment. I'm like, what? Like, what's going on, Mr. Miyagi? Like, he's like, I wanted you to lose that $5,000 because I know you're gonna make 10. And I'm like, okay. So I ended up getting him a Mr. Miyagi bobblehead, but he
Nice.
was right. Like, not long after that, there's a place called Party City that sells like balloons and streamers and stuff like that for like different parties you have.
Yeah, they're a franchise. I think they're here in Canada, or they
Okay.
used to be. I'm not sure if they're still here or not.
They were like $1 a share. And I was like, well, ain't we're not allowed to party right now during COVID, but we're eventually going to have birthday parties. So I'm going to buy this stock. Like, and I bought a bunch of it. Like, I just YOLO'd everything on. I was like, I'm going to buy this, do this option. I ended up making like $8,000. And I was like, there you go. Same thing with AMC. I had AMC at sub $3. And I was so impatient because I thought I was this great day trader. I was like, oh, it's not moving. I'm going to sell it. And then a week later, it skyrockets and I had like 100 shares. And I'm like, man, I could have retired to, right then and there. Like, but it's just a matter of patience, I think, is what it all comes down to for me. And what I've started to learn throughout the past year and a half with dividends is just patience. Like, buy a little bit, don't go all in. Like, I went all in when I first started. I did 3 or 4 shares of VOO because it was like, well, if you're gonna have the money, you might as well put it in there. If you don't care about it in the long run, that's what everybody likes to say. And it's like, I look at my account and that's one of the worst ones I have. And I'm like, because I didn't dollar cost average, and it's like,
Right.
that's very, very important. I think it's whenever I have this rollover that I'm about to do, it's a nice chunk of money for me. And I could put it all in on SCHD or something like that, or slowly do it throughout the year. And it's like, why am I in any hurry? Like, if everything's as bad as people are saying it is, then I might as well dollar cost on the way down, and if
DCA becomes your best friend. It
yep,
truly does, right? Like,
absolutely. Yeah. So
I
if you were to
also
recommend,
go ahead.
just real quick, if you were to recommend any other Canadian stocks recently, so I don't know what episode I'm on, what would you recommend? That's
Oh,
not
not
financial
financial
advice.
advice.
Yep.
Not financial advice. Obviously,
But
the Canadian banks
speaking with
are,
me, like,
yeah, just
I'm looking for something that's a staple. It's not not going anywhere.
that's obviously the Canadian banks are the easy answer, the go-to
Right.
easy answer. I'm sure you've probably seen the tweet I've pulled up from Settling Nomads that shows the longevity and consistency of Canadian banks paying dividends.
For
Some of
like
them
200
like
years.
200 years close and
Yeah.
over 150 years at
I didn't
minimum.
even
So
I didn't even know we were doing this long. Like, I didn't know we were
yeah,
handing out dividends that long. When you said 200 years, I was like, what? Like,
yeah.
it baffles me. It's crazy to think people were doing the same thing 100 years ago or 200 years ago. But
I would say the next easiest answer to that question is the telecoms, Bell Canada, TELUS.
okay.
The third biggest, and third and fourth is called Rogers and Quebecor. I would say again, sort of, do your own research into Bell and TELUS first before looking at at TELUS and Quebecor. Anthony, who is at Newcomer Investor, he would probably
Yep.
shoot me if I didn't mention Brookfield. Personally, I don't.
Okay.
Personally, I don't invest in Brookfield. Um, Not that there's anything wrong with the company. It's just, again, Pokemon, you can't catch them all.
Right.
So Brookfield would definitely be one to look into. Um, and again, the railways, it definitely, there only are two railways in Canada, CN Canadian National and then CP Canadian Pacific, which
Okay.
both operate throughout Canada and the US. And the one CP uh, has been trying to purchase, I believe the name of the company was Kansas City Southern or Kansas Southern Railway. And
Okay.
that would give them exposure to Mexico as well. So it would be the only
Okay.
rail
Yeah.
line that would have tracks basically in all three, well, the three biggest countries in North America.
Yeah. I remember
Um,
you mentioning that. I think that's the one that I was a
yeah.
little bit more interested in. But
So I mean, there's obviously there's tons of great companies in Canada to invest in. One that one that I've been meaning to bring up on the Passive Income podcast and have yet to bring up, not even with any other Canadians, is it's a retail store called Canadian Tire, and
Okay.
I would compare it to probably like a Harbor Freight type of store in the U.S.
Uh-huh.
Um, a little bit like a Home Depot or Lowe's, but without the lumber. So just a lot of sort of the other stuff, the home and garden, the seasonal, and
Yeah.
the garden center, seasonal, right? The seasonal
Mhm.
section of the stores that have whatever each season. Um, yeah, and Canadian Tire also has an automotive section throughout the country. Don't ever take your car there. Go to a much better garage. um, yeah, so and that's another 100-year-old company. Something that I definitely want to start talking about more on the Passive Income podcast and to more Canadian guests about it, because it's a very interesting company with a very interesting story. Like I said, over 100 years old now. So
Yeah.
I could probably talk forever on other Canadian companies too. Like I know you've probably heard me say RioCan is my top REIT in
Yep.
Canada.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I
yeah,
just like to get a little, like I said earlier, just get a little taste and see what how things work in your area. It's like it's just so crazy. This invisible line changes so much.
yeah,
And it's like this imaginary line, and all of a sudden now we're two different people, two different sets of rules, and it's like, but I think that's what this power of this community. It's like somebody had asked my opinion on something, and I was like, I never heard of this. And I started typing it in. I'm like, still don't see it. Like, I don't understand why I'm not seeing it. I'm like, sorry, dude, I don't know what this is. And he was like, oh, it's a European stock. And I'm like, oh, well, that's why it's not showing up on my feed over here. And I'm like, well, I don't know anything about European stocks, but this guy I know in DivTwit named Liam, like,
yeah.
I talked to him a lot. And I'm like, hey, and I just tagged him into it. And I tagged a couple of other people. And it's like, hey, can you get this question answered? Yeah, absolutely. This. And they got an answer for me. And
Nice.
welcomed him into the community, and
Yeah,
there he
that's
is. He's a
awesome
new,
as well.
yeah.
So far, I've only had two Europeans on. European DGI, Dividend Growth
Mm-hmm.
Investor, and Haley. Haley is awesome. Actually,
Yeah.
so is Euro DGI. And yeah, it's obviously I've also had, I think we're up to episode 54 right
Mm-hmm.
now. So in less than five, or I guess just over 5 months, maybe I've lost track. And yeah, so I've been thinking what I want to do is get a green screen put up behind me and just I don't know if you're able to do it on a green screen. I think you probably should be able to if I could put a map and just like put points of like all the different provinces and states and
Oh
places
yeah.
that
Yeah.
the guests have been from, because that would be like you said, it's
Yeah.
just
That'd be
this
cool.
amazing collective of even in the US, people in California are going to think
Right.
and differently than people like where you are on the East Coast, right? Like
Yep.
it's
Oh
different. And
yeah.
same with
I've got a buddy that he's brother from another mother. Literally has the same birthday as me, just a year younger. He ended up moving to California and does stuff for like music. And I'll ask his opinion on things like how are things going over there on this, and he'll give me like the inside scoop of how LA is running at that current time,
right.
because that's where everything is, and you have to kind of have a little your hand in everything and just, oh, how's this industry doing and how's that doing? He's like, oh, like this new restaurant's great, man, you got to try it next time you come out here. And it's like, okay, well, one, I'll do that, but two, let me find out if they're investable. Can I go put any money into this company? Because it's like I trust his opinion. But it's like
Nice.
that's the great thing about this community is knowing people from all walks of
All
earth.
over here, right?
And it's like, and it's cool to know. It's like can learn from, hey, this guy blew $35,000 and is starting from $10 a week again, and let's just give him a follow and watch him grow. And it's like you'll see every week. I just post 2 cents. Like my wife made more money on Starbucks than I did, and she's only been investing for a month. And like, because she only has eight or 10 picks, that she liked. Because I made her pick stuff that she liked, and then I added a couple things
Nice.
like SCHD that I thought would help her out a little bit. But it's funny, I don't have that much invested in Starbucks, and I was like, you beat me first month already. And she was like, minimal effort, maximum results. And I'm like, I like that, babe.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. Oh, wow. I see we're already at an hour, and this has been an incredible conversation. I've really appreciated your time. Thank you so much for
Yes,
coming
sir.
on. In closing, anything you would like to say before we sign off?
Just thank you to everybody that's watching. If you stayed this far, you know the drill. Make sure you subscribe. That's the rule. I'm just going to take over Dave's job.
Nice.
But no, it's been great. I appreciate it. And I look forward to talking to everybody online. So,
Awesome. Yeah. Again, thank you so much for being here. Links in the description below for buy investing shirts and buy me a coffee. And like Jay said, if you're still here, you know the rules. Subscribe.